What's up, everybody? My name is Tucker. In today's video, we're going to be talking about some NBA trades that should happen. But quickly, before I get started, I want to let you guys know that today's video is sponsored by FanDuel. And as I'm sure a lot of you guys know, there's a huge slate of NBA games tonight, and you can make it that much more exciting with daily fantasy games at FanDuel. They've got two really cool offers going on. One, down in the description below, there is a sign-up link with my name, fanduel.com/sportinglogically. If you sign up as a first-time user, using that link, you get a 20% bonus on your first deposit, and there's a contest set up where you can go head-to-head directly against my lineup that I've created for tonight. You guys can see that at the bottom of the screen. That link is also in the description. So first-time users, 20% bonus on your first sign-up using that sign-up link down below, and you can enter a contest to play directly against me in tonight's games over on FanDuel. And thank you again to FanDuel for sponsoring this video. Okay, with that said, let's go ahead and talk about some NBA trades that, in my opinion, should be happening before the trade deadline this year. First up on the list, it's kind of a two-way street here. First, I think New Orleans should be looking to trade away Brandon Ingram, quite frankly. It's a situation where I can't imagine that Zion returning is going to make this team a competitive playoff team. And there's probably a bigger video here for New Orleans sometime down the road, but if there's no path towards them becoming a playoff team, there's no reason to keep the guys on the roster right now. Like, it's just such a disaster. We know Zion's unhappy. Are you really just going to pay these two guys like $70+ million to win 30 games every year? It's not necessarily their fault. Brandon Ingram's really good. Zion's awesome. They just don't have a team around them at all. And if you're counting on Zion to return and be a consistent part of this team, and then that power you to the postseason, there's been almost no indication to this point from a health standpoint that that's going to be a possibility. Now, in terms of possibilities for Brandon Ingram, the Warriors, of course, are always going to be at the top of that list. They can do a Wiggins plus young guys picks, whatever thing, and get Brandon Ingram. The one issue I have with that is, like, Andrew Wiggins is actually pretty valuable to them, and he's, an off-ball spacer and a good defender, and Ingram is a much, much, much better offensive player. But if Clay comes back and looks good, do you really need that much more offense on this group? Or would you like to keep the versatility that Wiggins provides you defensively? Because it would just, theoretically, it would be a bit of a weird fit from a, like, getting Ingram to play his role standpoint, although that would make them such a more devastating offensive team. But regardless, the bottom line is, I think it's time for the Pelicans to move on from Brandon Ingram and probably Zion too. Like, again, they're probably getting their own video at some point. Next up, speaking of disasters, Sacramento. We got a trade machine coming for you guys tomorrow, a little Thanksgiving Day trade machine coming up for Sacramento tomorrow. I think it's time to move on from De'Aaron Fox. I think there's just, again, it's similar to the Pelicans thing. Like, there's just no future here. There's no way to envision a scenario in which this team becomes a consistent postseason team. And you're paying De'Aaron Fox like $35 million over the next couple of years. And like, he's a good young player, and that's the reason to go ahead and move him now, is because there is going to be value for him around the league. Maybe you can get Ben Simmons, whatever the case may be, but I just don't know that De'Aaron Fox on his own provides enough value for Sacramento to just keep him at $35 million when they can't even beat the Sixers backups. Basically, none of the Sixers starters played the other night, and the Kings still lost to him, granted in Alvin Gentry's first game as head coach, but it's not a good situation. They screwed up the Bogdanovich thing. Walton screwed up the team. They still haven't moved Buddy Hield. They still haven't moved Marvin Bagley. Honestly, you could just replace this entry with the Kings should trade away like basically the entire roster. Harrison Barnes has been good. Use that value to get some other stuff. It's bad. Next up, this one I feel pretty passionate about, but I think there are going to be some people that disagree. I think it would be fine for the Raptors to move on from Pascal Siakam. We talked about this briefly in a different video. Siakam is obviously very, very good, was critical when they won the title, but he just doesn't work as well as like the number one guy on a team that you're hoping to be like a top tier postseason contender. He's a really, really good second or third option kind of guy, but if he's going to be the primary offensive creator all the time, it just doesn't work. And this Raptors team, the interest for me comes with, OG, Scotty Barnes, Van Vliet, all these guys that are crazy active, tons of length, playing great defense, and at the center of all that, you need a Kawhi-like star to power you offensively. And Siakam's just not that guy. And if he's not that guy and you don't know when you're going to get him, you might as well use Siakam's value to try and get that player, whether it be getting as many draft picks as you can, getting the opportunity to move up in the draft, not being as good this year, so you get a higher draft pick, potentially making a trade down the road, or trading Siakam potentially for that guy. But I just think in general, the Siakam thing in Toronto has run its course, and he would be a really good fit on a handful of different teams around the league that are still looking for that second or third guy, because I think in that role, Siakam is awesome. Now, Toronto thinks that there's a path for them to go and get that central star guy, and then all of a sudden they're back at the top of the East. That's fine, but for me right now, Toronto is just an interesting team, an intriguing team. And when that's the case, I'm cool with just kind of moving on from the Siakam. Next up now, I don't even know. I think this is like year 3 of asking for this. Indiana, pick one. Pick a guy. I don't care who it is. Pick Sabonis, pick Turner. Pick one of them. I'm tired of it. Like, you have so much value in your front court. You have two guys that you would be able to get a good amount of value for in a trade. You don't have enough wings, or you don't have a top tier wing. You don't really have a top tier guard unless you're considering Malcolm Brogdon to be that guy. Use some of that front court value to strengthen the rest of your roster. There's too much redundancy on this Pacers roster. There's too many good guards. There's too many good wings. Not enough great players at either of those two positions. And they have two great bigs. Like, just it's very, very obvious the way that they can improve this roster. And look, maybe they're just super committed. They're like, you know what? Sabonis, Turner, it worked. I'm sure a lot of the times it does. Well, there are situations in which it doesn't. And you're not in a situation to just have the luxury of having two guys whose skill sets consistently overlap. I legitimately don't care which player you decide to keep. Turner probably situationally gets you more value across the board, just because I think there are more teams that can find a fit pretty easily for Miles Turner. Like, for example, Miles Turner with Golden State is a very, very easy fit. Sabonis is a good fit, but he doesn't work as well defensively. You can go back and forth from there however you'd like to, but just pick a guy, please. I'm begging you to pick a guy. Second to last, the Rockets. I think it's not the exact same as the Siakam thing, but I think it's time to trade away Christian Wood. The more I look at this Rocket situation, the more it's just going to be a very, very long-term project. They've got a lot of interesting young guys. They're going to grow. They're going to develop. But in terms of them being like a borderline play-in team, it's going to be a couple of years. And the main benefit of having Christian Wood on the roster right now is the fact that he's cheap and he's a really good value, one of the better value signings in free agency from a year ago, 2 years ago. But the problem is it was only on a 3-year deal. So by the time the Rockets are looking like an up-and-coming team again, they're going to have to pay Christian Wood. And because he's been like the main guy on this team for, at that point, like 2 years, 3 years, his statistics are going to allow him to ask for like $25+ million from the Rockets, a contract that they should not be excited about signing him to. It's not that he's a bad player. The timeline just doesn't match up. And while he has value right now statistically, and you don't have to pay to re-sign him, I would look to go ahead and try and get value out of the guy. It's not like you're going anywhere this season anyway. It's not like you can't really be that much worse, right, than you already are with him on the roster. So get value out of him rather than 2 years from now when you're starting to look like an up-and-coming team, having to then deal with having to re-sign Christian Wood. I think it's time to move on from him. And then last up on the list, Portland. They've been fine this year. Chauncey Billups' first year as head coach. CJ doing his thing. Dame's doing his thing. Starting to play much better. But you have to understand there's no ceiling for this group. There's no ceiling that puts you in contention for a title. There's just not. Just make the move. Like, just trade for Ben Simmons. Whether it be CJ, I guess it can't be Dame at this point because of how low Ben Simmons' trade value is gone. But do whatever you can to try and make that kind of deal work. Shake up the roster and see if there is a ceiling that exists for this group that can push you towards title contention. Because I do think that there's something really intriguing there with Dame and Ben Simmons together, where him as a roller and then him allowing him to be in control of the second. There's just something there, and Chauncey Billups can certainly relate to having a difficult start to your NBA career in terms of the team that drafted you highly. I mean, he bounced around from a couple of different teams before he finally found his spot, and maybe that's something he can relate to Ben Simmons with. Not that Simmons has been a bad player to begin his career, but in terms of turmoil with your initial team, I think Chauncey Billups got traded before his first season with the Celtics was even over. So I think that situationally, that's something that is interesting. I think it's something that works. And it's something I would really like to see the Blazers just be proactive for once about shaking up the roster, about changing some things around. And I think the closer we get to the trade deadline, the more intriguing CJ McCollum and stuff trade looks. for the Sixers. Now, there's, of course, some concerns and some risk there with the Ben Simmons trade because you don't know what his mindset is like. You don't know what kind of shape he's in terms of like being ready to play basketball. According to him, he's not mentally ready to play. Of course, that's absolutely a risk, but he is an incredibly talented player. He was arguably the best defensive player in the league last year and fits really, really well in this roster where he can be a screener with Lillard and a playmaker off that and then run with a second unit if you put shooting around him. I think it's time. I think that's the team, and I'd really love to see them make that move. But that is going to be the end of today's video, and thank you guys very much for watching. Once again, thank you to FanDuel for sponsoring the video. If you guys liked the video, be sure to leave a like rating on it and check out more videos from me. The boxes on screen. Once again, my name is Tucker. Hope you guys have an awesome rest of your Wednesday, and I will see you all next time.